They're wondering how a woman as stunning as you are, that is the object of so many men's desire, and you probably have the pick of the litter.
She's a world-famous singer who could have any man she wants. Yet she chose to marry herself. But was it really self-love or just a cover-up for not having the options everyone thinks she had? On Valentine's Day of 2020, Maya released a music video for her track, The Truth. In the video, she appeared in a flowing white dress, a deliberate choice meant to symbolize a wedding ceremony. Except this one had a twist. She was marrying herself. The act may sound unusual at first, but it's actually part of a growing practice known as rather than entering into marriage with another person, individuals choose to commit to themselves, prioritizing self-love, independence, and personal growth. That's exactly what Maya embraced in her video, though the bold move sparked a wave of mixed reactions. Some applauded her symbolism, while others dismissed it as strange or even irrational. The conversation resurfaced just last week when Maya sat down with Melissa Ford on her podcast, where Ford raised a thought-provoking question about Maya's decision and the deeper meaning behind it.
Wondering how a woman as stunning as you are, that is the object of so many men's desire, and you probably have the pick of the litter.
Melissa didn't waste time circling around pleasantries. She looked Maya in the eye and spoke with a mix of admiration and curiosity. "You're an incredibly beautiful woman, someone countless men would dream of being with." It was more than a compliment, it was a statement of fact. Maya has long been admired not only for her looks but also for her talent, her charisma, and the aura of confidence she carries into every room. On the surface, she embodies what so many would assume is the perfect package: beauty, success, and independence. But then Melissa leaned in with the question that cuts straight to the heart of the matter. If that's the case, why would someone like you choose never to marry? It was the kind of question that lingers in the air because it touches on assumptions we collectively hold. Society has been conditioned to believe that marriage is the ultimate destination for women, particularly women who appear to have it all. To the outside world, Maya's unmarried status isn't just surprising, it almost feels like a contradiction. How could someone who checks all the boxes still be standing outside the institution so many see as the pinnacle of personal fulfillment? Melissa's question wasn't simply about Maya's personal life, it tapped into a broader conversation about choice, independence, and the evolving role of marriage in modern culture. For decades, beauty and desirability were thought to guarantee marriage. The traditional narrative said that if a woman was attractive enough, talented enough, or graceful enough, she would inevitably be chosen. Yet Maya's story stands in direct contrast to that old belief. She is all of those things. Still, she resists the idea of binding herself in marriage. Her hesitation, of course, isn't rooted in a lack of opportunity. Men have always shown interest in her. Her public persona has ensured that. But interest alone doesn't equal compatibility, nor does it guarantee longevity. As Melissa pressed her, the question became less about why Maya hadn't married, and more about what she truly valued in life. Was her singleness an intentional choice, an act of defiance against tradition? Or was it, perhaps, the result of deeper fears or disillusionment born from her past? What made Melissa's inquiry powerful is that it exposed a tension many women face. On one hand, they are told that marriage is optional, that self-love and independence are enough. On the other hand, society continues to measure their worth against their relationship status. Maya, sitting in that chair, became a mirror for that paradox. She had embraced the journey of self-focus, even symbolically marrying herself in a music video, yet she still found herself having to explain, to justify, why she hadn't married a man. Melissa's bluntness was important because it forced Maya to articulate her truth rather than hide behind vague affirmations. It opened the door for a nuanced discussion about how divorce in her family shaped her worldview, about how she balances faith with personal choice, and about what it means for a woman to wait for a partner who adds to her life rather than subtracts from it. The underlying tension here is this: society struggles to accept that a woman can be both desirable and deliberately unmarried. People are quick to assume that if a woman like Maya isn't married, something must be wrong. Either she's too picky, too independent, or too scarred by past experiences. Rarely do we stop to consider that perhaps she simply defines fulfillment differently. Melissa's question, then, wasn't just a challenge to Maya, it was a challenge to everyone listening. It asked us to confront the assumptions we make about women's lives, to rethink the connection between beauty and marriage, and to accept that sometimes the most obvious path isn't the one everyone wants to walk. And in that moment, Maya was left with an opportunity to either defend herself with the usual cliches, or to peel back the layers and reveal something more profound about love, timing, and the courage to stand apart from expectation.
On a journey of self-love, of self-care, so that I show up as my best self. And I do believe in a lot of the universal laws and the law of attraction, and making sure that I attract nothing short of the best me too. I'm not on y'all's time. I'm on God's time. I'm on God's time, and I give it to God.
Maya opened up about her own childhood, recalling how her parents' divorce left a lasting mark on her. Witnessing that unraveling shaped her perspective. She didn't feel compelled to walk the traditional path of marriage just because it was expected. And truthfully, that makes sense. Marriage isn't a universal goal, and for some, it simply doesn't fit. That's how she explained it during her conversation on Melissa Ford's podcast. But here's where things get complicated. When you listen closely, Maya's stance on marriage and relationships isn't entirely straightforward. On one hand, she points to her parents' divorce as the reason she chooses not to marry. Yet, on the other hand, she occasionally sends mixed signal statements that seem to contradict that reasoning.
Married herself. And I want to talk about if being single by choice is really as liberating or as much of a choice as we are currently talking about it being.
You heard that. Let's see what her podcast mate has to say.
Single by choice is not real.
Explain that.
So when I've been single by choice, it's because I wanted to stop dating for that moment. It's because I knew I had to focus on myself to heal from whatever shit happened the last time.
Okay.
That's the choice. But it's only the choice because it didn't work out. If Maya met the perfect, she would not have married herself. You are single because of your option.
On one side, Maya insists she has no desire for marriage. Yet, in the same breath, she leaves the door cracked open. If the right situation came along, one that added to my life, instead of taking from it, I might be open to it. Here's the problem with that logic. Every genuine relationship, whether romantic or professional, comes with both gains and losses. Yes, a partner can enrich your life, but they'll also require compromise. That's the essence of give and takes balance. What Maya seems to imply, however, is that she expects someone to pour into her life without her giving much in return. And honestly, that sounds less like self-protection and more like self-centeredness. But then Maya reframes her position. She explains that she's on a journey of self-love and self-care, aiming to become the best version of herself. She says she follows universal principles like the law of attraction, believing that when she shows up as her highest self, she naturally draws the best into her life. And above all, she emphasizes that she's on God's timing, not anyone else's. It's a beautiful sentiment, but here's the contradiction. Maya is one of the most celebrated singers of her generation. A woman who built her career through effort, discipline, and initiative. She didn't sit back waiting for God's time to bless her with a record deal, she pursued it relentlessly. The same applies to education, career opportunities, and life goals. We don't wait for divine timing to apply to college, to land a job interview, or even to eat when we're hungry. We act, because when we truly want something, we move toward it. So when women say, "I'm waiting on God to send me the right man," it often signals hesitation more than faith. It becomes a way to disguise the truth that maybe they're not genuinely interested in marriage or relationships at all. And that brings us back to Maya. She speaks as if she's uninterested in romance. But is she really? Interestingly, this very question about Maya's stance came up on a podcast a few years ago. The show was called Horrible Decisions, and the hosts didn't shy away from discussing her situation directly.
Equate our value to how many men want to sleep with us, how many men are in our DMs, and how many proposals we got. Not marriages, proposals. But here's the thing. If all these guys want us and we want none of those guys, then we have no options. And I think that's like a hard pill for us to swallow. Like, we don't want to admit that, but we know deep down inside, like, we go to our message requests or our DMs or our text messages, and it's just full of guys that want to sleep with us or, talk about our bodies. We realize, like, damn, we ain't got no options.
One of the podcast hosts made an interesting point. If the right man were truly present in Maya's life, she probably wouldn't be so dismissive about marriage. But here's the twist: the real challenge for Maya might be that her options are limited, and that's where things start to get real. On one side, Maya frames her position as a matter of timing and faith, waiting on God, holding out for the perfect connection. On the other side, she references her past trauma, hinting that her reluctance stems from watching her parents' marriage fall apart. The truth seems to lie somewhere in between, in a murky gray area, yet the women on Horrible Decisions argued something different, that Maya may never have had those choices in the first place. And this echoes Melissa Ford's words at the very start of her own podcast. She marveled aloud, "A woman as beautiful and accomplished as you, why hasn't someone locked that down?" To steer the conversation, Maya framed her singlehood as a personal decision, a conscious act of self-direction, but the uncomfortable possibility remains. Despite her beauty and her career success, it may not be entirely her choice. And increasingly, more women are beginning to admit that. One of the women on the podcast broke it down plainly. "Sure, plenty of men want to sleep with you. Your inbox might be full. But that doesn't mean those men are the ones you'd actually want, or that they're offering real options." And that's where many women, Maya included, blur the lines. Interest alone doesn't equal true opportunity. Just because men want to take you out or spend time with you doesn't mean you hold the kind of leverage needed for a lasting, meaningful relationship. Real relationships require reciprocity, something to give and something to receive. Now, Maya has admitted that she's fine with a man bringing value into her life. But the problem lies in her unwillingness to bring equal value in return. Her focus seems fixed entirely on herself, leaving little room for the balance a healthy partnership demands. That's not empowerment, that's self-absorption. And it's a mindset that leaves many women wondering why they remain single for so long. It's easy to take that position when you're stunning, successful, and admired. Maya is beautiful, famous, and embodies traditional femininity traits that, on the surface, would make her highly desirable as a wife. But attractiveness alone doesn't sustain a long-term bond. If you're not willing to pour into your partner, over time, you get outpaced by women who will. The truth is, men, especially high-value men with options, are not confined to choosing beauty alone. Looks fade in importance when weighed against qualities like appreciation, loyalty, and shared growth. A man may not always choose the most beautiful woman, but he will choose the right woman. And being sexy doesn't guarantee being right. This is where Maya's narrative falters. She frames her singleness as a deliberate personal choice, but ultimately, the choice lies with men whether they see her as wife material or not. And the more wealth and status a woman accumulates, the harder it becomes to attract men of equal or greater standing. The pool narrows, and men with power and resources have access to women worldwide, not just the ones sliding into their DMs. We've seen this same pattern play out time and again in Hollywood and beyond. And one of the clearest examples is Halle Berry. In her younger years, Holly stood as one of the most celebrated actresses in the world. She wasn't just admired for her undeniable beauty, she had an Academy Award, a thriving career, and the kind of presence that made her a household name. Naturally, that positioned her in circles where she had access to partners who were equally powerful, accomplished, and prestigious. Her early relationships reflected that reality: men who matched her level in terms of influence, status, and visibility. But as the years went on, there was a noticeable shift. The partners she was publicly linked to weren't operating at the same level of prominence as those from her earlier years. This isn't to disparage the individuals themselves, but to highlight a larger truth. The dynamics of high-value dating are unforgiving, especially for women in the public eye. Access changes over time, and so does competition. This shift wasn't accidental. It reflected the realities of how relationships, particularly those involving high-status men, tend to function. Men at the top of their fields, whether in entertainment, business, or sports, often maintain broad dating pools that stretch across borders, industries, and cultures. They're not limited by proximity, nor are they confined to traditional expectations. They can choose from an expansive range of women, many of whom are younger, eager, and willing to compete for that position by offering more than just beauty. And that's the crux of the matter. When women believe that their looks, fame, or initial desirability will forever guarantee them access to the same caliber of men, they often find themselves disappointed. Competition doesn't disappear, intensifies. Younger women enter the same spaces, and the bar for what is enough in a partner rises. It's not just about appearance. It becomes about compatibility, effort, shared values, and above all, the willingness to give as much as one expects to receive. What some women do instead of acknowledging this competition, is create a narrative that softens the reality. They frame their singleness as a personal preference, a divine waiting game, or an intentional act of self-prioritization. And while those explanations sound empowering, they can also serve as shieldsways to avoid confronting the possibility that the men they desire simply aren't choosing them anymore. This isn't to say that women shouldn't embrace of independence or faith. Those are powerful and necessary aspects of a fulfilling life. But when it comes to relationships, the dynamics are less about ideals and more about reciprocity. High-value men, just like anyone else, seek partnerships where they feel appreciated, respected, and supported. They want someone who contributes to their lives, not someone who assumes that beauty alone is the ticket to lasting commitment. That's the unspoken truth Melissa Ford hinted at when she questioned Maya, and it's the same truth that Halle Berry's dating history illustrates. It isn't always about whether a woman chooses to marry or remain single, it's about whether the men she wants are also choosing her. Desire isn't a one-way street. It's a negotiation between two people who must both see value in the union. And that's why, at the end of the day, it isn't always about personal choice or waiting on God's timing. In the high-stakes arena of relationships, especially where wealth, fame, and status are involved, choice is shared. Both sides have to opt in. And if one side holds more leverage, more options, and more access, the balance of power shifts often, leaving women like Maya or Hala navigating a landscape that looks far different from the one they entered in their youth.